Thanks for joining us here on Indivisible. I'm your host, John Stubbins. We're thrilled to have you with us, America. This is the show where we put God, faith, family, and country first, and we will always tell you the truth. Make sure that you help us by going to indivisibleevents.us, where you can donate, you can sign up as we're adding to our new website. We'd be thrilled to have you with us for our events, rallies, follow the show, obviously follow our streaming partners, and also the causes that we support, like fair and transparent elections, also defendingtherepublic.org, and all of our streaming partners, patriottv.live, Cloud Hub, pill.net, Foxhole app, YouTube, Spreely.com, Frank Speech, Facebook, Twitter, Pure Social TV, etc. Make sure that you join us there, and make sure you also go to stubbins.org and you can sign up, subscribe for free there. Click the notifications bell and you'll get updates on the show. We need your generous donations to keep growing the show and continue our investigations. So please feel free to join us there. Also, join us at ourfreenation.org, and you can find that also at indivisibleevents.us, which is our new website. I just want to get started here today. Everywhere you turn here in America, the left is trying to destroy us. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be CRT. It could be our border, whether it's the relationship with China. Our enemies are just coming at us from every possible angle. That includes big tech. That includes our families, attacking our families, the core of what we are, attacking our kids in our schools. It's just ridiculous. And our founding fathers, they would be turning over in their graves if they knew what we were going through in this country right now, and also what this country is becoming based on our enemies within attacking us. You know, I talk a lot about stealth jihad, and we'll get into some of that today with our guest. But whether it's the border, whether it's China, whether it's Afghanistan, which is another distraction, it doesn't matter what it is. It's always something, and it's one attack after another, and it's against you, the American people. And Biden, Harris, Blinken, Milley, Austin, they're all useless fools. It doesn't matter what the subject is. They just want to destroy us. And you can see this Marxist movement, which we've been talking about for a year, continue to grip and grip and grip. The American people are fighting back, but we need more people to stand up. Here's an interesting quote, and I love this, from General George S. Patton. We herd sheep, we drive cattle, we lead people, right? Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. That is an amazing quote. And as you know, whether it's General Flynn, whether it's Colonel Oliver North, anybody that we've had on our show, when we've discussed these items, we always go back to General Patton, because General Patton is the antithesis of what America stands for in regards to attitude and how we conduct ourselves internationally on the world stage, and also at our border, and what we're going to allow and not allow. So, look, we've got to put the focus on positives. So we think about all these negative distractions, and believe me, they're everywhere. You turn on the news every single day, it's one right after the other. They keep throwing whatever they can at the wall to see if it will stick, to see what harm they can bring us. And it continues every single day. It gets nauseating. It's overwhelming. We're fighting on so many different fronts, but we've got to stay positive. We've got to stay focused, because when you're fighting tyranny, you've got to have people on the front lines to do that. That takes integrity. That takes honesty, character, honorable men and women out there in America, patriots. They're becoming harder to find, but they're out there. And we're proud to have a patriot today as our guest that embodies all of those attributes and many, many more. My guest today is the recipient of the Bronze Star, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal. He served in the U.S. Army from 1982 to 2004, 2nd Battalion, 20th Artillery Regiment, Persian Gulf War, Iraq War, Kuwait, 1991, Iraq, 2003. He's been chairman of the Texas GOP since 2020, and since resigning to run for governor for the state of Texas. He was a representative in Florida in the 22nd District from 2011 to 2013. I want to welcome on the show, honored to have him, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, John. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for your service in the Air Force as well.
Oh, thank you, sir. And listen, we are really thrilled to have you on the show today. We admire your service, everything that you brought to the country, your distinguished career, and just your mind and what you know on the world stage is so relevant right now with all the things that we're going through, that we're going to go through, and we're going to tackle some of that today. But it's an honor to have you. We're very excited to have you on the show. As I mentioned, you're running for governor for the state of Texas, and we're thrilled about that. I know that you're running against Greg Abbott, who's the current sitting governor down there, and I know that you have challengers, whether it's Don Huffines or Chad Prather. I don't know who all's running down there. There's probably a lot more. But how's the campaign going?
Well, it's going very well. You know, we announced that we would run for governor here in Texas on July the 4th. And up to this point, it's been about 2.5 months. We've hit about 9,500 miles. This past weekend, I was out in West Texas. Later on today, after this interview, I'll head down to Nacogdoches, Texas, which is the oldest city here in the state of Texas. So a lot of traveling, getting out, sharing our message. And that comes up off of being the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, where I put in a lot of mileage as well. So the name and face recognition is going strong. The grassroots and the response has been incredible. The volunteer base, I think we're over 5,000 who have stepped up to be volunteers in our campaign. And the fundraising is doing very well also. So we're very pleased, and we're just going to continue to press on with our message about defending the Texas Republic and making sure that Texas stays a strong constitutional conservative state.
There had to have been a lot of crossover from your year as chairman of the GOP into your race now. Have you seen how positively that's affected your campaign in so many different ways?
Well, absolutely, because people know who I am and what I stand for. And, you know, when Governor Abbott last year was doing a lot of the shutdowns and lockdowns, I was speaking out about that, because no elected official has the enumerated power to decide who or what is essential. The most essential thing in Texas or anywhere in the United States of America is individual freedoms and rights and liberty. And we cannot have that infringed upon or eliminated. And so the other thing that has been so important is, you know, being able to get out there and talk about those legislative priorities that we had as the Republican Party of Texas that for whatever reason did not get passed through this last legislative session. And that's probably one of the big things that I want to see happen as governor. As well, you look at the failure at our border. The Biden administration has unconstitutionally implemented an open borders agenda. And yet our governor here has not done anything to step up and, you know, replace their failure and defend the Texas and the Texas sovereignty. And the Constitution gives, you know, a state the ability to do what the founding fathers call defend themselves against invasion. And that's exactly what we have happening here.
Yeah, you know, it's really incredible. The I guess just the constant, I kind of mentioned and alluded to that in my opening. It just seems like it's a constant flow of resistance against the Constitution, a resistance against the American value system, the resistance against Judeo-Christian values, pretty much everything America stands for. It seems like they're against. And it just blows my mind. Like I said, it seems like every single day, it's a new distraction to take our eye off over here, so we're not paying attention to the border over there. You know, last week it's Afghanistan. What's it going to be next? You know, it's one distraction after the other. We're constantly having to put out fires to protect our kids, our families. It's really disturbing. And as an American patriot, I know it's got to really bother you. It's got to bother your constituents. And I'm sure, because I spent a lot of time in Texas myself, I'm sure that they're saying this to you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a game of whack-a-mole. And one of the things that we need to have are strong states and strong leadership at the state level. Because when you look at the Declaration of Independence, these United States of America were created by free and independent states. And you also know about the 10th Amendment that says all of those powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. And so what we need to have are these strong states that can push back against this very onerous and, again, a very intrusive agenda from the federal government. You know, the fact that now, I mean, we're being told that we're second-class citizens if we have not been, quote unquote, vaccinated. When you only get a vaccine when you want to eradicate a disease, I find it very interesting that all of this hysteria over a virus that has a 99.96% recovery rate. So this is about control. And if you lose control of being able to make a decision about your body, then what else will you be able to make a decision on? Nothing. And so we've got to have those leaders at the state level that can stand up against this federal government. And yes, people are very concerned about the border. You know, here in Texas, we have 1,254 miles that we share with a failed country. That the cartels run Mexico, not the president. And so we have a drug trafficking crisis here. We have a human and sex trafficking crisis. And we also have a public health crisis because we're not mandating vaccines or shots or jabs in the arm for the people that are coming here illegally. As a matter of fact, we're just policing them up, processing them and dispersing them all throughout the state of Texas and throughout the United States of America. So I think that's one of the key indicators as to why we've seen this spike in the COVID virus, because we're not protecting and securing ourselves from those people that are coming here illegally.
Yeah, and not only that, but the Biden administration, they're not mandating that anyone from the border coming over illegally be vaccinated, or these people that they're bringing over from Afghanistan. It's almost as though he's purposely trying to, go after the American people on one hand, and then create the problem over here on the other hand, by allowing the self-perpetuating, disease to just continue. I just want to say I'm scrolling Colonel West's information at the bottom of the screen. You'll see that throughout the show so that you can go to his website. You can see what he's doing, what his issues are, what he stands for Texans and for America. And I highly encourage you to go to his website and donate, offer your time to help get out there and pound the pavement, knock on doors, make phone calls, whatever you can do to help Colonel West win this election down in Texas. By the way, I wanted to just touch on a couple things real briefly because we got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
But your motorcycle accident, I remember when you went down, it was big news.
Yeah.
Are you fully 100% back?
Well, I will tell you without a doubt that I am alive, but for the grace of God, because no one walks away from a motorcycle accident on an interstate highway at 75 miles per hour. So God spared my life. I had to have major reconstructive surgery done for my right shoulder. The rotator cuff was torn. The socket bone for my shoulder joint was fractured. The shoulder joint itself was dislodged and it was unstable. But I tell you, have been back to doing push-ups and doing my morning runs and crunches and everything like that. I lost some range of motion in the right shoulder, but the most important thing is that I'm above ground and perpendicular. So thank you for asking, John, and so many prayers lifted me up, and it was just a miracle. I'm a walking miracle.
Oh, praise God. And we definitely prayed for you. I remember when it first happened, I was like, oh my gosh, Colonel West went down on his bike. I didn't know you were doing 75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Praise God. Praise God.
75 miles an hour on Interstate 35 on Memorial Day weekend. And the fact that no cars ran over me or trucks ran over me is, like I said, it's just a miracle. And
that is a miracle. And we just want to praise God right now for making sure that you came out of that. Maybe not yet. Maybe, like you said, maybe some jinx in the armor, but overall you're alive, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So praise God.
Absolutely. And that's why if I can survive a motorcycle accident at 75 miles per hour, I'm really not worried about a COVID that has a 99.96% recovery rate.
Right. Absolutely. By the way, it was interesting because I saw this video. It was amazing to see the Army football team come out and every player was carrying a flag onto the field. I know that had to just swell your heart big time to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also this past weekend, you had Air Force and Navy playing up there in Annapolis, and the exact same thing. Every one of those football players was carrying an American flag. And I think that's something special because those young men that were on that football field will all take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, and they will be willing to lay down their lives to honor that oath. And so for each one of them to carry a flag of the United States of America onto a football field, that's pretty special. But, getting back to what you talked about, you just have to ask yourself, what is it about the progressive socialist left that they hate so much about America? That, as Barack Obama said back in 2008, we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States. I mean, what do they want to transform us to? What do they want to transform us from? And I think we're starting to understand exactly what their vision is. And it's just great, John, to see so many people now standing up. 2 years ago, no one was going to school board meetings. And now all of a sudden you see people all over school board meetings challenging these school board decisions that are being made. And that's a good thing. It's a moment of awakening. I think this will be the third great awakening for our country.
Yes, and it's to be honest with you, sir, it's really long overdue. I think and I think about this all the time, and I talk about this with so many different guests. I think in some respects, as a country, and I blame myself for this too, I think we got complacent. Mm-hmm. I think we got lazy to a certain degree.
Apathetic.
We weren't going to school board meetings. Yeah. We weren't involved in politics. We weren't paying attention to what was going on, whether it's behind the scenes or right in front of our noses. And sometimes we need that wake-up call to get, re-engaged, re-involved. It's interesting because I didn't really get involved in politics until I'd say it was probably about 2 years before Obama ran for office, okay? The thing that got me involved in politics was jihad. Yeah. Islamic jihad, radical Islam, and the threat of radical Islam, understanding that threat, whether it be jihad as a totality or things like stealth jihad, mm-hmm. which are individual specifics to infiltrate government or schools or your school board or mm-hmm. whatever it is to destroy from within. And when I started really engaging in that and studying that, it really scared me because I saw that it was happening right in front of my eyes. And I said, look, I've got to get involved. I've got to start paying attention. This is my country here, mm-hmm. and I care.
No, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I would advise all of your viewers to do is to go back and read the explanatory memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was found during an FBI raid in the early 1990s in the basement of a home in Northern Virginia. And when you read that explanatory memorandum, which was really their strategic op plan of how they were going to do exactly what you talked about, the stealth jihad, we are seeing that come to fruition. Many of the groups that they elaborated upon in that in Annex A of that memorandum, they're freely operating. As a matter of fact, the Council for American Islamic Relations has an office building on Capitol Hill on the House of Representatives side. One of the things that we have down here in Texas is that CARE has a Muslim Advocacy Day in the Texas State Capitol. And this past legislative session, they were pushing very hard to make Eid and all of these Ramadan, state holidays, here in the state of Texas. So we have to be very careful because if we're not paying attention, we're going to get desensitized to a lot of the things that are going on. And I'll give you a case in point. I live here in Garland, Texas, and on August the 29th, just 3 Sundays ago, a young man by the name of Imran Ali Rashid, who had been previously under investigation by the FBI for connections to Islamic terrorism. He calls up a Lyft driver by the name of Isabella Lewis. Isabella Lewis comes to pick him up. He shoots and kills Miss Lewis, and then he takes her car and drives over to the Plano Police Department and begins opening fire inside the Plano Police Department. And the FBI, in their search of his home, they found a letter, a memo, and it said that his actions were inspired by foreign Islamic terrorist organizations and groups. So it's already starting to happen again,
right?
Since we have restored a terrorist base in Afghanistan, sadly, because of the incompetence and the ineptness of this Biden administration.
Not to mention, in Afghanistan's one thing, and the Middle East is one thing, but at our southern border,
yes.
ISIS telling us that it's not even. A lot of people in America they automatically assume that all these people are coming in from Mexico or parts of South America. These people are coming from all over the world. It's over 100 countries that we've counted, and a lot of these countries are not. They don't want to. They don't want to assimilate to American values. They don't care about our flag. They don't care about rule of law. They don't care about America in general, or God for that matter.
No, you're absolutely right. And we have already, again, 1,254 miles of border is wide open. Joe Biden, the federal government, is not doing anything. Governor Abbott not doing anything from the state level. It's just wide open. And so we have already apprehended 5 individuals that were on the terrorist watch list.
Right.
From Syria and Yemen. So, and the cartels, they're a terrorist group in and of themselves. They're already working with Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. August Pfluger, who is a member of Congress from out in West Texas, has a bill before the United States House of Representatives to address the over 200 tunnels that come out of Mexico into the state of Texas and a couple of the other border states. So
that's scary.
Well, it's more than scary. This is an invasion, and that's what the founding fathers called it in the Constitution. And so, for us to have leaders that are not paying attention to this threat, not paying attention to what is happening on our southern border, and just trying, I hate it when people say these are migrants. No, they're not. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people that are what they call getaways, that we don't know who they are, where they are. We just know that they came across. We may have seen them on a surveillance video, but we're not able to track them and find them. And that's on top of the 1.3 million that have come across the board in this fiscal year that have been apprehended. But yet again, that doesn't mean they've been deported. You know
what else is interesting? And I've studied World War II history. It's very fascinating to me. I'm sure it is to you. This really bothers me because during World War II, you had the axis of evil. You had Japan, you had Italy, you had Germany, Nazi Germany. And by the way, I look at Russia as part of that axis of evil as well, because Stalin killed probably more than Hitler. But ultimately, what I see happening right now is a new axis of evil, because you've got the CCP, you've got Islamic Jihad, you've got this BLM and Antifa movement, you've got the drug cartels from Mexico and South America. All these groups that hate America are coming together. Groups from the Middle East, ISIS, Al Qaeda, the Taliban. All of these different groups combining together to join forces, and they see a weak administration in Washington. They wouldn't have tried this with Trump, but they're going to do this with Biden because they know they can get away with it. And they'll care. Who knows how far they'll carry it? Who knows if Taiwan, is Taiwan in danger right now with everything that's going on?
Well, it's very interesting because here we were remembering the 20th anniversary of September 11th, and it was kind of like we went back to the future. Because on that 20th anniversary, guess what? The Taliban was raising their flags over the presidential palace there in Kabul, Afghanistan. They have complete control of the country. They had an inauguration ceremony for their new leadership. And oh, by the way, their new leadership is the same old leadership that we had captured, gotten off the battlefield, had in Guantanamo Bay, but Barack Obama released. They're right back in charge. But the interesting thing, when you talk about that axis of evil, Who did the Taliban invite to their inaugural ceremony there on September 11th? They invited Russia, they invited China, they invited Iran, they invited Pakistan. And we know that they are, providing safe harbor to ISIS, to Al Qaeda, and the Haqqani network. And so here we are. We're right back there. And again, I want to reiterate, Texas has a 1,254-mile border that is wide open.
Right. And by the way, we're going to go to a break here in a second. But before we go, I just want to say I agree with you on Islam. I agree with you about Congress. Look, through my investigations on this show, I've had whistleblowers, I had federal witnesses come to me. We know that at least 75% of Congress is subject RICO mob. We know that. Okay. We know through people like AOC of the squad that there's an Islamic radical bent they've already infiltrated that stealth jihad I was talking about, getting into our government. And you've got Obama and Biden that are supporting this and allowing this like it's no big deal. Meanwhile, the American people suffer. We'll be right back with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Big news, America. Mike is bringing back the pillow offer for just $29.98. They're the softest pillows. They don't go flat. Wash them and dry them as many times as you like, and they still keep their shape. And they're made in America. Mike is offering his premium My Pillows at his lowest price ever. Queen size for $29.98, regularly $69.98. That's a $40 savings. And king size, only $5 more. Go to mypillow.com and enter the promo code INDIVISIBLE for my show. Or call 1-800-716-4639 and give them the code INDIVISIBLE for my show, and you're going to get huge savings. We're back with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and we're thrilled to have a great discussion so far. Colonel, I wanted to, I've got a whole list of things I want to talk about, but before I do, I obviously, everybody knows about what happened to your wife, Angela, down in Dallas, her getting pulled over on suspicion of drinking or having drugs in her system. And through blood test, through lab testing, she was exonerated. Have the Dallas police apologized to you or her?
No, unfortunately, they have not. And I find that very disconcerting because, many of us were brought up with a basic rule. And I know in the military, we try to instill that rule in young airmen, young soldiers, young leaders, is that when you make a mistake, you own it. You take responsibility and hold yourself accountable for it. But for whatever reason, that does not seem to be the case with Chief Ed Garcia and the Dallas Police Department.
Real quick question. Is he part of this woke culture, this chief of police in Dallas? Is he part of this BLM movement?
Well, I will tell you this, that Chief Garcia came to Dallas from San Jose, California. And if you can recall that in San Jose, California, you had Trump supporters back during the election cycle that were attacked by, a pretty violent mob and things of that nature. And the police out there did not intervene to prevent that from happening. And he was the police chief there in San Jose when that happened. So I'll just let that speak for itself.
Yeah, well, please let Angela know that we support you, both of you, and that we definitely have your back. I'm so sorry that she went through that. That's horrible. And it's just a terrible experience. But at the same time, you almost wonder if you guys were targeted trying. I don't put anything past the left. You saw what they did to Larry Elder, okay, out in California. And these people, they have no shame. The way they come after candidates, they'll try to set you up. They'll try to do anything to disgrace you in public. And yet, if you turn around and do that, it's funny because, we were talking earlier about my body, my choice. Mm-hmm. The hypocrisy of the left is just astounding. Okay. When it comes to my body, my choice, all you hear about is my body, my choice when it comes to Planned Parenthood, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to these vaccines, all of a sudden, it's no longer my body, my choice. The hypocrisy of these people, it doesn't matter if it's a candidate, if it's the COVID vaccine, if it's somebody run, this is the game they play. You know this. It's the race card. It's the smear campaign. It's the lies. It's the Marxism. It just never stops.
No, you're absolutely right. And I will tell you that, we don't have any proof or evidence of this, what happened to my wife Angela being a political hit job. But the thing that incensed me the most was, number one, we cannot live in a country or, state of Texas where people can be arrested and charged with a crime for which there is no evidence. You cannot pull someone into jail for 14 hours based upon, I guess, or suspicion.
Right.
Complete violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. And you're absolutely right. When you talk about the hypocrisy of the left and how they will go to any lengths, I look at Larry Elder and what he has had to endure out there in California. And I just had to laugh when they said that Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy.
I know. It's like, you would think that I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, you would think that common sense, which, by the way, has left, it seems like half this country, you would think that common sense at some point would take over and people would say, okay, here's a black man who's a Republican who's running for governor, and they're saying that he's a white supremacist.
Yeah.
You would think that common sense would kick in and say, that just can't be. Let me do a little digging. But no, these people won't do any digging because the people that are in line with these different disruptive movements, like the CCP, like Jihad, like BLM or Antifa, or ISIS or the Middle East, radical Islam, all of these different movements, they have one thing in common, and that is to destroy America.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing is that when you go back to Joe Biden's inauguration speech, it was not about unity, it was about conformity. And the bottom line is that if you don't agree with the progressive socialist left, everything reverts back to you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, or what have you. And that's how they are trying to fearmonger or coerce people or threaten and intimidate them into succumbing to their agenda. And so I find it funny. You just mentioned Planned Parenthood. Well, everyone knows that Planned Parenthood was truly founded by a person that was a racist and a white supremacist. Margaret Sanger, who referred to blacks as undesirables and human weeds. And over close to 73% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located where? In minority, mainly black communities. But yet you don't hear BLM, you don't hear the left talking about Planned Parenthood and their founder and the things that she stood for. Because like I said, you can read her writings and she was clearly a racist and a white supremacist. She even spoke at Ku Klux Klan rallies.
Exactly.
But yet Larry Elder or someone like myself or even Candace Owens has been called a black white supremacist, which to me is quite confounding. Or you have Joe Biden coming out and saying that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. So now you have these white progressives, these elitists that are defining what it means to be black. It is, your skin color has to define how you think and how you vote. And if you don't think and vote as we want you to, then if you don't want to be part of the 21st century economic plantation that they have set up, if you want to be free and independent, you want to be a conservative, you're a threat to them and they have to destroy you.
You know what's interesting? I'm glad that you brought that up. I had several members of the cast and also the director, Nick Lubb, from Roe v. Wade on my show a few months ago. I'm going to show you a quick clip which will remind everybody out there about Margaret Sanger. Take a look at this.
And he was also mentored by Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. Now here's the ugly truth. Margaret opened clinics in poor black neighborhoods and called it the Negro Project.
The mass of Negroes, particularly in the South, still breed carelessly and disastrously. The result that the increase among Negroes, more than among whites, is that portion of the population least intelligent and fit.
Her goal was to reduce the black population, either through birth control or sterilization. She literally wanted to stop black people from having babies altogether.
You see that? There's a cross burning in the background. She's at a woman's KKK. I don't know if it was a potluck dinner or what, but everybody's sitting there at the table. There's a cross burning in the background talking about, I mean, you just said it. That sums it up.
No, and that's the truth that we have to get out there. One of the documentaries that I recommend for a lot of people to see is called Uncle Tom, which shows the truth of the Democrat Party. It's so funny, John, when you hear the Democrats saying that election integrity is Jim Crow 2.0. Well, they're the ones that established Jim Crow 1.0.
Right.
And when you look at this whole thing, how they're trying to bifurcate our society between, quote unquote, people that have gotten a shot and the people that haven't gotten a shot, they have done that before. They are the masters of discrimination. What's going to happen next? I mean, if you haven't gotten a shot, you have to go to a certain type of water fountain. You can't sit at the lunch counter. You have to go to a different type of bathroom. They're already saying that you cannot fly. And oh, by the way, most of the people in America that have not decided to take this jab are minorities, Black and Hispanics,
and hospital staff.
Yes,
hospital staff. That's the big one, because even in New York City, it was incredible. I saw the statistics. Up to 70% of hospital administrators and staff, nurses, they refuse to take it. Why?
Well, I think that a lot of people, once again, believe that it is their body, it is their choice. No one knows my body better than I do myself, and I take the right type of protocols. I still do my Army physical training 6 mornings out of the week. I take multivitamins and supplements to include zinc, which is necessary for immune health. And so I think that what people should be talking about is preventative measures that you can take yourself, and also how they can promote, a healthy lifestyle. Right. And also offer people these other protocols. I mean, now you see the left to include, these late night talking heads going after ivermectin. Ivermectin has proved to be, very beneficial for people. Hydroxychloroquine, Regeneron, all of these different type of things, other protocols than just getting stuck with the jab. And if the vaccine, quote unquote, is so effective, then why do we need to have a second booster? And now they're talking about a third booster. And so this is not about science; it's about control.
It's really disturbing, because you bring up the past of the Democratic Party, and here's one of the things that bothers me about our party, of the conservative movement, of Saving America, is that, and I don't know why it is, I've never been able to grasp it, but for some reason our party refuses to bring up the fact and put it in their face, by the way, okay? And I did this on Newsmax. When I went on Newsmax, they asked me about this, and I looked right at the camera and talked about Joe Biden and Jim Crow, because here's the truth. Barack Obama, okay, Joe Biden, like you said, it's their party that's the party of Jim Crow. It's their party that's the party of the KKK. It's their party that resisted civil rights legislation. It's their party that hung black people in the streets, in the Deep South. So I'm tired of this revisionist history that they're trying to put upon all of us with this CRT nonsense and the 1619 Project and white guilt and all this nonsense. The truth is, and we need to come out and say this boldly and loudly, and on television, to be honest with you, and on radio, is exactly what I just said. We need to put the onus. I don't know how they've gotten away over the last 50, 60 years with this lie to their constituents that it was the Republicans. Yeah. Where did this come from? When did this start that they were able to perpetuate this lie onto us? It's them. And we need to point the finger at them and let their constituents know that it was them.
Well, first and foremost, Republicans tend to be their own worst messengers. They have all the great points, all the great message themes that they can get out there. They have history on their side. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, the very first Congressional Black Caucus were 7 Republicans on Capitol Hill back right after during Reconstruction. But the thing is that they don't know how to articulate that. And also there's a reticence and a recalcitrance to do so because, they feel uncomfortable themselves with speaking the truth. And how did we get to this point is much the same as Goebbels, who was the Nazi minister of propaganda, once said, if you tell a lie often enough, eventually people will take it as the truth. And so when you have that premise and you combine it with the fact that we're not teaching history, we're not teaching civics to our young people, and you go on college and university campuses, and it's all of social studies or what have you. It's more about Marxism and progressivism, and Che Guevara T-shirts, running around all over the place. And so we've got to get back to the blocking and tackling. And I'll tell you what's most important. It's in our homes, it's in our churches, it's in our communities, and especially the body of Christ has to stand up. We need to have strong pastors that go back to the old Black Robe Regiment of the Revolutionary War and talk about these issues instead of being afraid to.
That's right. That's right. And we need voices that are not afraid to stand up and tell the truth because, the facts are what they are, whether they try to, and like I said, you're talking 50, 60 years of like you said, like Joseph Goebbels, constantly telling this lie where it just become accepted when the facts don't back that up. And we need to start fighting back with that and letting the people know, because the truth is what it is. And it doesn't matter whether they like it or not. The facts are the facts. Like Margaret Sanger, those kind of people need to be put out there and shown to be the destructors that they are. I want to go on and talk about this Marxist movement of BLM and Antifa. What are you seeing down in Texas regarding this movement, maybe specifically in Austin?
Well, it is without a doubt a cultural Marxist movement, and University of Texas there in Austin is one of those hotbeds. We have the Red Guards Austin, which is a far-left communist organization that has been going around spray painting hammers and sickles all over the city of Austin. You have a far-left city council down in Austin, defunded the police by $150 million, and now you've seen a 66% increase in violent crime. The homeless situation down there. Austin really is starting to look more and smell more like San Francisco than it is the capital of Texas. But, even there in Austin, you had people that said, we're concerned about our safety and security. And they rose up and they got a petition signed, and they got a measure put on the ballot this past May for the municipal elections. And they reversed that homeless ordinance that the city council had implemented there. So I think that, you're going to see people that are going to stand up and show the courage to say, no, we don't want this. And if you do want this, there's a state like California, you can go and you can have that all the day long, but not here in Texas. Yeah. But it's the courageous voices of elected officials and community leaders to be able to bring those people together and give them a task and a purpose to be able to push back. We've got to be informed. We've got to be educated before we go out there and we try to be activated. And that's the real heavy lift that has to happen. But I will tell you, I think that you're going to see a real resurgence of constitutional conservatism all across Texas. The greatest amount of failures of the left you can see in every single major urban population center here in Texas, in the Black and Hispanic neighborhoods and communities, especially where they're promoting victimization and victimhood instead of helping people to become victors.
Yeah. It's really disturbing. I just hope that we can get people out there telling the truth and doing. You won't have to do it in a mean way, just an honest and open way, but get the message out. We're going to take one quick more break, and we'll be right back with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. By now, you've all heard me talk about Mike and his great products. Well, guess what? Mike's now introduced his MyPillow My Slippers, which are fantastic. Great on my feet, soft as can be. I love them. Mike's taken over 2 years to develop these slippers. He's designed them to wear indoor or outdoor all day, all night long. Made with My Pillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue. Made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slippers. The My Slippers are so comfortable, you're going to want to get them for the whole family. Go to mypillow.com and click on the radio listener square and use promo code INDIVISIBLE. You'll also get deep discounts on all My Pillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the My Pillow mattress topper, and My Pillow towel sets. Or call 1-800-716-4639 and enter INDIVISIBLE as your promo code. We're back with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Look, Colonel, I wanted to ask you about the fatherless issue, because when we were talking about the destruction of the family and what they're trying to do to the nuclear family, you know, the statistics don't lie, and we've looked at this up and down, sideways. Back in the 70s, the white community, the black community, the Hispanic community, the fatherless rates were all under 3% back in the 70s. Now, in the black community, it's nearing 80%. In the white community, it's nearing 50%. Same thing with the Hispanic community. And, you know, you look to that and you see, you know, there's no fathers in the home. There's no one, you know, sharing with the family about God, about, you know, discipline, about rule of law, not teaching the kinds of things that you and I grew up with in our families that, you know, that made a family a family.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, in 1961, I was born in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in a blacks only hospital. I grew up in the same neighborhood that produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the old Fourth Ward neighborhood. But I had two incredible parents, and my dad was a World War II veteran. He was a corporal in the United States Army, and you can just imagine what it was like to have a dad that instilled that discipline, that love of country, and it came from a heart of being a servant and also someone that is sacrificed and committed to this country. And that's why at the age of 15, he challenged me to be the first officer in our family. But when you look at the Great Society programs of Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of the failures that he presented was that he said that if a woman had a child out of wedlock, the government would provide her a check, regardless of how many children she had out of wedlock. But the caveat, the condition was that there could not be a working man in the home. Even the liberal New York Senator, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, challenged Johnson on that, challenged the left on that. He wrote a book called The Negro Family, The Negro in America. And he was just absolutely, you know, vilified and just attacked and assailed because of what he did. But he was absolutely right. And so now today, what do you see when you go into these inner city communities? You see, as you just talked about, 77 to 80% fatherlessness. And you don't
It's a crisis.
It's a huge crisis. You don't have positive male role models, and that affects boys and girls. And so what do you end up seeing? You see the drugs, you see the crime, you see the gangs,
the looting,
and the looting, because there's no sense of discipline. There's no sense of respect. Look, when I was in school, if I did something wrong, I begged the teachers, do not call my parents.
Oh, I know, me too. That the last thing, look, you with you and I, the punishment was always worse at home, right?
Yes, always was. But now you don't have that. You have,
no.
You know, if you may have a mother, maybe sometimes it's a grandmother, maybe it's an aunt, you know, that is
exactly. My dad's father served in the U.S. Navy, a chief petty officer. He was in World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam.
Wow.
And look, you can imagine how my father was raised in Florida, and then you can imagine how I was raised. That discipline that goes along with being a family, and you're right, we just don't have that anymore. And then you see that America is not compatible with fatherlessness.
No,
it does. Our country doesn't work without the family unit. Our principles don't work. Our godliness, all of the things that make America who she is, they don't work with all of these Marxist, darts that they're throwing at us to try to to try to destroy us from within.
And that's what Alexis de Tocqueville wrote about in his book, Democracy in America, back in the early 1800s. And we have gotten so far away from those fundamental principles and values. And you're right, it starts in the home, the Judeo-Christian faith heritage. And guess what you found? You found Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, part of this new culture, Marxism. And what was one of the main things that Black Lives Matter was against? The traditional nuclear family.
Yeah. It was one of the first things that they attacked. And they openly said that they want to see America burn, that it's brought to its knees, that the history books are changed. It's like, we went through the civil rights era, and I grew up thinking that, everybody was equal in this country. And you come to find out in 2020 that no, they don't want that now. Now they want to go back to segregation, but they want to do it in a different way. It boggles the mind. And when you deal with something like the fatherless issue, we've got to attack it, and we do that. We do that through our men's ministry, the first hour for men. We try to attack that, and I'd love to talk to you about that sometime, privately. But I want to move on real quick. We're almost out of time. With China, with Fauci and Danzig and their relationship to the CCP, with everything else that's going on and the weakness of the Biden administration, you got to think China. And I talked to this about this with Gordon Chang a lot.
Sure.
You got to think that they're licking their chops.
Of course, because weakness is enticing. That's exactly what happened with Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler continued to encroach, and asked for the Sudetenland, asked for Czechoslovakia, everything. And people just continued to turn their backs on it. Remember Neville Chamberlain came in 1936 with the quote unquote document signed by Hitler saying that they were more time.
Right.
And so Neville Chamberlain displayed that weakness. And so now, as we said earlier in the show, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. North Korea is already, testing new missiles. I
saw that.
Yeah, and the Islamic jihadists are going to be that's going to be reignited. So we have to have that strong leadership, because there are certain people in the world, they only understand strength and might. And Ronald Reagan talked about peace through strength. But now we don't have that. We have this appeasement, accommodation. Who would have ever thought that we would live in an America 20 years after 9/11, where we would refer to the Taliban as professional and businesslike?
It's insane.
But that's exactly what the Biden administration referred to them as. And even people that asked the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, do you consider the Taliban the enemy? And he said, well, I really don't want to get into any type of labels. Well, so what are you saying to the enemy? So if you are Taiwan, you should be nervous. If you're Ukraine, you should be nervous.
Israel,
you should be absolutely nervous, because right now you have a land bridge of terrorism that extends from Afghanistan to Iran, to Iraq, to Syria, to Lebanon. So basically, Islamic jihadism now has a base in Afghanistan, but it extends all the way up to the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah. And it's in Yemen, it's in Syria. So it's not even just Afghanistan. It's in Iran. Yeah. So and Iraq is unstable. So and the crazy thing is, when you guys were over there, you had your foot on the neck of those terrorists, and it was Obama that made us take our foot off their necks. Obama, I blame Obama and Biden for that, and Clinton.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, I just want to remind your viewers that the Taliban senior leadership is the exact same Taliban senior leadership that we took off the battlefield 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And we had them in Guantanamo Bay. Just the same as the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, was in our custody back in Iraq. But he was released, and look at what he established. So history has a very brutal way of repeating itself if you're not paying attention to it.
I wanted to talk to you a minute about election integrity. I know that it's obviously on everyone's minds. I'm sure, the Democrats would like nothing more than to turn Texas blue, and all these different people that are coming from California to Texas to Florida to Nevada to Tennessee to Ohio, wherever it is. You wonder in their minds if they can have enough common sense to realize that the way that they voted in California, they can't do that if they don't want to have to run again, because they're going to find out that if they keep voting the way that they've been voting, they're going to run out of places to run.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Albert Einstein once said that the pure definition of insanity is to continue to do the exact same thing and think you're going to get different results. And that's what you see happening. So you're right. We have people that are fleeing California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey because of the onerous policies that are there, and they're coming here to Texas, but yet they still want to have those exact same policies. And so that's pure definition of insanity. So I think it's so important that we say to people is that when you come here to a place like Texas, because really that's what the left is doing. California used to be a red state, Republican. Nevada used to be a red state. You look at a place like the state of Washington, the only blue you will find is in King County. And look what happened in Georgia. I mean, now you have two avowed socialists as the senators there. So we've got to stand up and tell people that we're not going to accept you coming in here and bringing in these failed policies, ideologies, and principles and values that were contrary to what has been successful in the Lone Star State. And that's one of the big things that I'll do as governor.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I know that another thing that's really huge for you is energy. And energy is big for all of us. And you see the trouble that we're getting into. And here we go again with Biden. He takes down the Keystone Pipeline, but then gives to Russia.
Yes.
I mean, this guy is crazy.
Or he cuts back, puts his boot on the heel of our oil and gas industry that made us, energy independent. And then he goes to OPEC, which is just full of despots, dictators, and autocrats that hate America. And he asks them to increase their production. So, again, I think it's so important that we go on the offense. John, too often we have been on the defense, and we've got to go on the attack mode. Who cares if they yell and scream and call us names?
That's right.
We got to go on the offense, and we got to show them that everything that you believe in is a failure.
Well, Colonel West, I'll be in your corner anytime you want a fighter that would stand alongside you. I'd be proud to do it any day. Look forward to maybe talking with you privately about the men's ministry. I think that is something that we could utilize with the First Hour for Men to get into these neighborhoods and try to get our families back together and start cutting into these fatherless numbers, which, like I said, it's a crisis now.
It is.
Crisis levels. By the way, I don't know if you saw this or not, but now they're doing the Black National Anthem at pro sporting events. I stopped watching pro sports when they started defunding the police and spitting on our flag and kneeling and all that nonsense. So I haven't been watching pro sports, but I understand now that we've got two anthems. What is going on?
Well,
they ruined pro sports.
We only have one anthem. That's the national anthem. That's the Star Spangled Banner that was written by Francis Scott Key as he was watching the bombardment and the shelling of the fort there in Baltimore Harbor. And so that's what we must always remember. I grew up singing the Negro hymn there in church growing up in Atlanta, and it's more of a spiritual. It's not a national anthem. It's a spiritual song. It was about, lift every voice and sing. It was about lifting yourself up out of the despair and the despondency and looking toward a brighter future, not being a victim, but being a victor. And so I think that we've got to get back to understanding who we are as America. There's only one flag. There's only one national anthem. And this is E pluribus unum. Out of many, we are one. And we cannot have all of this cultural Marxism.
Amen. Amen. And Colonel West, I just want to salute you again for your service. And I thank you, sir, for coming on the show today. It's been amazing. We covered a lot of ground. Again, make sure that you go to, scrolling at the bottom, westfortexas.com. That's West, the number 4, Texas, west.com. Make sure that you leave a note for Colonel West, chime in with a donation, help the campaign, whether it's phone calls, knocking on doors, whatever you can. Colonel West, God bless you.
Thanks.
God bless Angela, your entire family. We're so thrilled to have you. I hope that you'll come back.
Absolutely. God be with you, and aim high.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
That was Colonel Alan West. We were thrilled to have him today. Look, we've got a lot of great news coming up I want to share with you, and I'm going to be doing so over the course of the next couple weeks. But just stay tuned. We've got a lot of amazing guests coming up. So thank you, America, for joining us once again and for all your support. God bless you.
Yeah.